think people sometimes walk into Ramadan feeling like by the end of it they're going to achieve Sheikh and Shaykha status, and it's just not the way it works. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing really well. I was just saying just before I did the intro that I haven't done a recording in so long. So yeah, I've missed it.
Alhamdulillah.
So how's your Ramadan been?
Alhamdulillah. Ramadan has been, I think it's been nice. It's chilled, I suppose. I'm chilled in the sense of, it's like nice, not chilled as in cool, because it's really hot here.
I was just going to ask, how many Ramadans have you done in Ghana now?
This is the second one now. Yeah, it's the second one, alhamdulillah. I first came here, it was just before Eid al-Adha that year. So I had Eid al-Adha here, so it will be my third Eid al-Adha here this year. But yeah, this is my second Ramadan, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. And do you see a big difference between Ramadan in the UK and Ramadan in Ghana?
Yeah, I do see quite big differences. I mean, obviously, like community-wise, I think I'm not as involved in the community here as I was when I was in the UK. But I think even when you're in the UK, it takes time for you to, become part of the community anyways. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And another thing, because obviously I'll say a non-religious country so much, because you can say non-Muslim country, but yeah, there's Muslims and Christians, there's mixed religions, but I think most of the masajid, they do things with reverts in mind, and kind of trying to bring the Muslim community together, whereas here there's a lot more Muslim community, so it's not, even though it's not considered a Muslim country, it's kind of split. Like I see it as half and half, because like even areas which aren't supposed to be Muslim areas, there's like Muslims everywhere, there's masajid everywhere. Eid is a national holiday here as well, so everybody gets the day off for Eid, stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like the vice president is Muslim. The masajid that I've been to, they don't have they're not having iftar in the masjid. It's like, I think it's similar to how some Muslim countries are, because obviously if you live in a place where everyone's Muslim, you just have your iftar at home with your family. Do you know what I mean? You go to the masjid for salah, and that's basically it. So the masjid doesn't need to do all these kind of different activities. That they might have some classes and stuff like that, but that's what they provide, not like food stuff. So it's different from the UK in that kind of sense. Our way of prayers, they really are very punctual with it. So they start at a certain time and they're finished by a certain time, and that's it. Like they don't literally, up to now I haven't seen them having delays, which I was actually really impressed, because black people always get a bad rap for not knowing how to keep time in it.
You said Ghana was a Christian country. I suppose to a degree there must be sort of commonality with sort of traditional values that are sort of disappearing in the West, I guess. I don't know, I'm making an assumption. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So what do you mean exactly?
In the sense of morals and commonalities, because of the religious values that people hold, whether it be Islamic or Christian, but I suppose there'll be some common ground.
Yeah, I think there is. And there's a level of mutual respect, I think, in general. I think this isn't just Ghana. From my experience with other West Africans, like Nigeria, it's like a mix. There's a lot of Muslims, a lot of Christians. Because they live side by side with each other, it's almost like you're a Muslim family, you're a Christian family. And if you're a Muslim woman who happens to have converted, it's because of marriage. Do you know what I mean? So that happens. They don't seem to really understand the concept of people becoming Muslim because Islam is the truth, because they want to be Muslim. Do you know what I mean? Like since I came here, because obviously my family is Christian, like when we go out and stuff and people will ask, well, how come you dress like this? And, oh, are you Muslim? They'll ask me when I'm with my family. It's like, yeah, I'm Muslim. And then they're like, is your family Muslim? And I'll say, no. They think that it's because I've married a Muslim. When I tell them no, it's like, why would you change kind of thing? Because the Christians in general, I think they don't understand the concept of Islam as well, most of them. They see Islam how they see Christianity. So they think that we worship Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like they worship Jesus. Yeah, so they don't really get that difference, and you try to explain that to them. Was actually Muhammad is just a prophet for us, he's not a god. So you explain that. You don't really get much opportunity to go into these conversations, because usually they're kind of just you meet somebody casually and they'll ask a few questions. You know how it is.
So is there not like a dawah scene there?
Well, not where I am, not that I've seen anyway. I've seen a Ghanaian brother online that is trying to do dawah. He's I think he's in the central region. That's what I gather from his videos. But like he's got like a YouTube channel where he's trying to give dawah in Ghana and stuff like that, and talk about the different Islamic schools and stuff like they have here, because like there's a lot of things here, and like they take the Quran really seriously, the Muslims here, alhamdulillah. So like there's a lot of madrasa to like learn to memorize Quran and things like that. So it's really nice, like you get these kind of things, like this easy access to stuff like that. So alhamdulillah, there's a lot of beneficial things for Muslims. But yeah, for the dawah wise, it's
Ramadan in Scotland definitely is different to Ramadan in Scotland 18 years ago. I would try to avoid it, to be honest with you. But when I was living in London, there would be some times where I would come to Scotland during Ramadan. And I always felt the difference. It was like it did not exist. Ramadan was your own wee individual personal thing, but outside there was no recognition of it at all. That's obviously not the case. It was just the fact that I was isolated. But yeah, that's kind of how it felt though. But now it doesn't feel like that. And I've just moved back, so it's not like I'm not isolated per se, but I definitely see more mosques, I see more Muslims, I see more multicultural in general, to be honest with you. Glasgow was not as multicultural as it is today. So it is really nice, like you see people walking to Tarawih, you see people walking back. Like this, for me, this is the main things that I remember about London in Ramadan, is just seeing all sorts of Muslims on the street coming or going to Tarawih. So you start to see that here now. So that's fantastic. And also there's a lot of restaurants that are really Ramadan conscious. So you'll have restaurants that have big banners outside saying come and break your fast here and stuff like that, which I can't imagine seeing that back in the day, So it's definitely different and better. But it's also really cash and calm as well. I often feel like in London, because it's such a huge place, that Ramadan can be really busy. Like going to Tarawih in London, there was many times where I was praying in the car park, or I was praying sort of outside the actual women's section of the masjid, because there was just so many people that would go, which I guess is amazing. It definitely was amazing. Even when it started raining, there would be sometimes it would rain. I'd absolutely love it. But I think as I'm getting older, I like things to be less busy. I like it to be more casual and calm and stuff. And, so yeah, like it's mellow, but you definitely get the Ramadan vibe, alhamdulillah. Even Asda here sells like meat and like activity books and all sorts of little trinkets for Ramadan for the kids, which again, couldn't imagine that in Glasgow, couldn't imagine it, but it's here and I'm really grateful. Alhamdulillah. What differences do you see the more Ramadans you complete?
What differences do I see? Like obviously I've moved to a different country, so there's the obvious differences that I've mentioned already there, but
what about personally as a revert?
Personally as a revert, like for myself, that's really interesting. I think now, when I first became Muslim, like I'd been fasting actually before I became Muslim for like maybe 3 years, right? So at that time, the way I saw Ramadan, it was like, yeah, it's this like really like exciting time for Muslims, like my Muslim friends, where I understood that, you don't eat from dawn till sunset, but I didn't really know the rules about Ramadan and like the main purposes of it and stuff like that. And then when I did become Muslim, alhamdulillah, like I thought, well, I know this because I've already done this, this part. You just think it's just fasting, you're just not eating. It's like you think it's as simple as not having food during the day. And because I've kind of already been doing that, I felt like, my body's already kind of used to like having that training where, just staying away from food and not being bothered if somebody's eating around you and stuff like that. I didn't know like the ins and outs of Ramadan really, and I wasn't being taught by my husband at the time. So I remember the first time I heard about Laylatul Qadr and this kind of stuff was from my neighbours that were living in London, where I'd grown up. And I was going back to London one time, like during Ramadan, to see my parents. And I went to see my Muslim neighbours there. And it happened to be the 27th night of Ramadan, right? And the neighbour was like, I used to call them, he used to call him Uncle Abdullah, as a Muslim family. But we were sitting down talking with his auntie and uncle, and, he was saying, oh yeah, do you know that tonight is Laylatul Qadr? It's the night of power. And I was just like, what is he talking about? Because he was asking me how my Ramadan's been. I was like, yeah, it's fine. And, you just feel like it's like, obviously you haven't been eating. You're not breaking any rules. So yeah, that's great. Do you know what I mean? You just get on with things. Everything's the same, but you just don't eat during the day. So I was curious about it, but then because of how my life was at the time, it was hard for me to really find out more information about it. It wasn't like how now you can just go online, type
Google.
stuff, and you're going to get a million videos.
People don't even realise how fortunate they are today. Like, it was so difficult to access the basic stuff. Totally agree.
If you don't have like somebody give you a cassette tape or a book explaining certain concepts,
too far, you went too far. You exposed us way too much there.
I think it was probably after I got divorced, and I started like mixing more with the community. I think it was that kind of helped me to get more involved in the Muslim community and meet more Muslims and start mixing with Muslims outside of Ramadan, like going to different classes with different sisters and stuff like that, and spending more time in the masjid. And obviously, like, you know, as the years go on, like you learn a bit more, a little bit more. In the UK, there's such a big emphasis placed on coming together as a community because it's Ramadan, and that's great and everything. But then I think now the stage I'm at now is just like I came to a point where it's just like I understood that Ramadan is really about like having that extra time with Allah. So really try to reflect on yourself and build your relationship with Allah. So you think about your year, like the past year that you've spent, like how you've been interacting with people, like habits that you might have developed or habits that you might have dropped, whether they're good or bad. Habits that you want to pick up like from now on going forward. You know, you really take time to kind of analyze yourself, and I think that obviously when you spend more time alone, you probably got a better chance of being able to really do that properly. There's the social element of Ramadan is nice, but
it's that balance in it. But definitely Ramadan is a time of giving and sharing, and sometimes that means inviting people into your space or taking stuff out your space and taking it to your neighbours. We definitely promote those actions. However, I feel like it's being commercialised, especially in the West. Like you said, it's not really, when we look back to the best of generations, it's not really how it's done. Yes, there was giving, yes, there was sharing, yes, there was all that stuff, but it wasn't like the social event of the year. Everything is done with humility. And I feel like a lot of humility is getting took out. What we see online anyway, I don't see this sort of stuff in person, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to say that Ramadan isn't special. It really, really is, like, in the real sense, though.
I'm not trying to put a downer on anything, because I know that especially in Western countries, Ramadan is an opportunity to like get people together, because that's the time when maybe some Muslims will take time off work, for example, you know, so that they could have that little bit extra time. And, you know, if you're a Revert as well, and maybe obviously you don't have a Muslim family, or you're living in a remote place and you're making an effort to go to this mosque, if there was nothing, then like, you know, what would they get out of it? Do you know what I mean? So it's good that they have these things, but I think that we need to always remember that Ramadan is the month of the Quran. So we need to really place a lot of emphasis on the Quran, which I think sometimes gets lost, apart from obviously the Taraweeh. You know, there's this kind of reliance on the Taraweeh itself to, you know, from the Muslims, that, you know, it's almost like we made it fard. Do you know what I mean? It's not obligatory to go to Taraweeh prayer in the masjid, even though obviously it's the sunnah to do so. It's definitely good. But you know, the difference between us and, like, you know, the early companions and stuff like that, I think, is that they knew their limits. So when they come together for something social, when they go and they give sadaqah, or when they invite somebody for iftar or whatever the case may be, they know that, okay, well, you go, you eat, finish, halas, and then you move on. You don't kind of have this time that you're going to sit down lounging and start having long conversations and kind of having this wasting time in between. There was very like, you know, just sticking to, we're doing this activity, now it's on to the next something. The Taraweeh prayer, but outside of Taraweeh, are you praying yourself, doing your own like sunnat by yourself at home? Are you, you know, because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that we shouldn't turn our homes into graveyards. So you might do all of your prayers in the masjid, which is fantastic, but in your house, have you been maintaining?
Well, it's actually better for sisters to do it in the house. That is what's more encouraged, and it's more encouraged for men to do it outside of the house. There was actually a bit of a situation here the other day where one of the mosques in Glasgow, not my mosque, one of the mosques in Glasgow actually shut off the women's area in the last 10 days to allow the men to do itikaf in that section of the mosque. And there was a bit of an uproar about it, because they're like, you know, it's the last 10 days and we need to sort of be able to pray Taraweeh, and you've just like sort of ostracised us. And the masjid's defence, though, it's not a big masjid. So like, I'll definitely give them that. So it's not like that they have other spaces and they've just decided to take over the sisters' spaces. And I do think, like, I do sort of feel for the sisters, especially if there's reverts who are isolated. I do feel for them in the sense of they really need to be around people where they're going to see people put in that extra practice in the last 10 days. But at the same time, we do have to recognise as women that it is better for us to do in the house. And it's like, even if you don't know a lot of Quran, there's so much flexibilities. You can read from the Mus'haf. You don't have to be a hafiz of the Quran.
That's where people, I think, I don't know, almost beat themselves up sometimes, because they think that it has to be one particular way. And as long as you're sticking within the boundaries of the Sunnah, you can, as you said, it's better for women to pray at home. So I think for me, in that case, with this masjid that you've mentioned, they should have, I'm assuming that they gave the sisters notice. I would like to think that they did. But if your masjid has done that, then, try to make some kind of compensation for the sisters at the same time. You should be able to get together as women and pray together, because that is part of the Sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ used to, the companions, some of the female companions used to lead each other in salah.
It's not the only mosque in Glasgow either, like there are other, it might not suit the locals, obviously, but there are other mosques that you can attend. So it's just, especially nowadays, like some of us are more restricted than others, but really generally people can get to places reasonably easy, so. And Glasgow is not a big city. It's not in comparison to London. It's the biggest city in Scotland though, but it's not big. You can make efforts to do other things. But I think the outrage was more the stereotypical outrage, like, this is an oppression on sisters, which, like, listen, I do get it. The last 10 days are important, and sometimes sisters need that encouragement, and Tarawih at the mosque can serve that purpose for some, So I do get it, but at the same time, I feel like at some point, people need to get a grip and realise that, not everything is going to be perfect. Sometimes some things are going to happen that are going to disrupt your life a bit, and it's not the end of the world when sort of obstacles come in our way. I feel like we're extremely hypersensitive, and again, I get why some people would have an issue with this, because there wasn't really any notice. It got told in the last 10 days. But at the same time, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like I'm just getting to an age where I'm just like, I want zero drama. Okay, is this happening? Okay, let's choose this route. Let's choose this option, But I really don't have the time to sit and complain. Like, I don't know. That's me.
Say alhamdulillah, and know that you can do the things in your home and actually still get more rewards for being at home and doing it.
Exactly. I do definitely think if all mosques in the UK were doing it, or even in Glasgow, let's say, were doing it, then that's definitely a conversation. I don't know, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's just a set of flats that has been converted into a masjid. If you think about that, there's only so much that sort of space can give. So again, I get it. I get why that would gut a few people. But again, we need to remember that not everything is a life or death situation. If this masjid can't do it because it is small and they do need to host people for itikaf, then just sort out going to another masjid. Alhamdulillah, we're in the fortunate situation where the Muslim community is a lot bigger than it used to be. We do have more mosques than we used to have. So, like, alhamdulillah, you're not deprived. Like, there's some people who are living in Muslim countries that have no masjids because they war-torn. And me, myself, sometimes I have moments where I feel sorry for myself, and then I'm like, wow, you really need to get a grip, because there's so much other things going on in the world, and you have zero idea of how fortunate you are. I was getting emotional when you were talking about Ramadan being the month of the Quran. I definitely feel like the essence of Ramadan is sometimes missed. And I've been mentoring this new Revert. She's absolutely adorable. I really genuinely love her. And oh my gosh, I'm going to try not get emotional, but I can already feel it coming, just so you know. But she's just such a breath of fresh air. Like, and even how she's went into Ramadan, before she was going into Ramadan, her mentality, her view, it's so mature for only being Muslim 3 months. It really is. It's so beautiful to watch. I don't know, like, when people walk in and out your life, there's a purpose for them being there, and you sort of, sometimes you're able to see it in the moment, sometimes you don't until it's gone. But with her, I really feel like I'm getting something It's sort of lessons that keep me in touch with how far I've come. I don't know, it just keeps me in touch with my journey, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you, like, in terms of how you feel about the differences as you progress, the more Ramadans you complete. Because for me, like, I never saw Ramadan as a burden, right? So I just want to make that clear. I really wanted to grasp what I was sort of seeing everybody feeling around me. I had enough Iman to be a practicing Muslim, but because I was so limited in the sort of wisdom behind things and knowing, like knowledge in general, I feel like there was only so much of Ramadan I could ever get, if that makes sense. I noticed more what I was letting go rather than what I was gaining. And I feel like for me, that's the difference now as an older revert, that I'm able to see what I gain more rather than what I let go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It just makes me think, actually, I think sometimes, you know, for example, when the Ramadan is coming up, people be like, oh, what's your plan for Ramadan? You know, what's your Ramadan plan? And everybody's got their journals and, you know, whatnot, this kind of stuff. And for me, it's just like, I just like to keep it simple. Like, literally, it's the month of the Quran, so I'm going to focus on the Quran. That means I'm going to read the Quran, I'm going to recite it, I'm going to revise whatever I've learned from it, I'm going to listen to tafsir and to understand the Quran, like the meanings of it. That's how simple I try to keep Ramadan. When you look online, you know, you can see there's so much things, and I think it's easy for you to get distracted and start like watching videos that like they have no relation to the Quran at all, no relation to even Ramadan in general. They just happen to be aired during Ramadan or recorded in the Ramadan or whatever. And it's like, I think we can spend our time doing better things. That's my personal opinion. So if you want to be more focused, then try to, you know, pick up, you know, if you want to prepare before Ramadan, find, you know, there's different online, you know, Islamic schools that have channels. They usually put out tafsir that they're doing on a daily basis, or they'll already have tafsir from earlier years. You could sit down and say, well, I'm going to go through this tafsir, even if it's one surah, you just take your time and go through it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that you could be listening to regarding tafsir of Quran.
I might give a shout out to this channel, because me and you know this channel, in our pathetic attempts to learn Arabic. But yeah, no, there's this really good channel. I don't know too much about the brother, but his channel is under the name of Mustafa Nicholas. He's an American revert, and his channel is focused on learning Arabic through reading. And he's done some really nice tafsir where he not only gives you a sort of summary of the tafsir, but he's also helping you to understand the Arabic, and that's like sort of my focus just now. And that's why I was getting a wee bit emotional when you were talking earlier on in terms of it being the month of the Quran, because I think I've gained a lot in that area through videos like this, you know, where you're really sort of breaking down the language and seeing the wisdom behind Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words. You know, it really is truly beautiful when you give the important things the priority that they deserve. And yeah, I've just got so much out of it, so I'm going to sort of tag that in the video, because do you remember that brother we watched where he was sort of talking about a routine and learning Arabic? Yeah, so it's that guy, you know, and it is just it was just really, really nice. I'm sad Ramadan is leaving us. I'm very, very hyper aware of it. And the full purpose of us coming on together was talking about post-Ramadan advice, particularly for reverts, but for all of us, really, you know. So what sort of advice would you give reverts or Muslims in general as we leave this blessed month?
I think just to not be like, okay, I always get really depressed. I always get really depressed at the end of Ramadan, like literally. And I think what I've been trying to advise myself for like the past like couple of years is basically that it's not the end. As long as you have life in your body, it's not the end. You know, Allah comes down at the last third of every night, every single night of the year, not just during Ramadan. So if you feel like you haven't done enough during Ramadan, as long as you're still alive after that, you can still keep going. Even now, like for example, we're recording this, is the 27th, right? So if you feel like, oh, I've missed Laylatul Qadr or whatever, you know, I didn't make enough effort, I missed out doing this dua or what, you know, like you can still do it. Like it's not too late.
Still have 2 or 3 days,
still make that effort. Do you know what I mean? Like you know, you still make that effort to, you know, do as much as you can for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what Allah loves mostly is consistency with your actions, your deeds, the things that you're doing. As long as you're doing it according to the sunnah, you know, within the boundaries of the sunnah, and consistent. These are the 2 main things that you need to remember to like keep going forward. And Ramadan is just like Ramadan is like, it's your training school, you know. You come out of Ramadan and you should continue on what you're doing. So, like, for example, you mentioned the tafsir that you've been listening. I've been listening to tafsir by Timbuktu Seminary. They're at least an hour long, most of them. You know, the point of it is that after Ramadan is over, inshallah, and, you know, we're still alive, we should still continue with those tafsir and be listening to them and benefiting and learning from them, because the Quran is for life. It's not just for Ramadan, basically. You know, for the whole month, if you didn't do anything at all, if you felt like you wasted it, you can still start now. And even if Ramadan ends and you didn't get to do the things that you wanted to do, you can still do them after Ramadan, because Allah is there all the time. Do you know what I mean? You know, this is how you build your personal relationship with Allah, because that's what Islam is. Like, you're Allah, you know, you're taking that personal responsibility. Being in an environment where we have righteous companions is obviously a big deal and definitely a blessing, but we need to be those people that we would like to be around. So we have to build a relationship ourselves, inshallah.
I couldn't agree more. What I'll say is, if you get to the end of Ramadan, or you leave Ramadan where you feel like you've achieved nothing, there needs to be recognition that that's how you left. What you do in your life and the choices that you make are going to affect you first and foremost, and then the people that you care about. So, for example, you know, your kids, your dependents, you know. Don't waste any more time. Recognize that you have flaws. Recognize the areas where you need the most help. Create goals and fixing them. And then once you've fixed them, keep building on it. What are other areas you need to work on? I think people sometimes walk into Ramadan feeling like by the end of it, they're going to achieve Shaykh and Shaykha status. And it's just not the way it works. You definitely need to be doing more in Ramadan. You definitely need to be putting your best effort in and taking advantage of the opportunity. That's for sure. You can't dispute that. But at the same time, we have to go in with a mentality where we're giving the right stuff the priority, and with the very minimum goal to walk out of it better than we walked in. Like you said, it's about habit building, and it's about trying to take those habits outside of Ramadan. So we've just fasted for 30 days. So the least you can do is fast 2 times a week, or the white days, the sunnah days of the month. This is minor in comparison. And this is why it's so important to implement these things as soon as we leave, because they are fresh in our mind and you know, in our action. It's definitely about trying your best to implement as much of what you did in Ramadan into your everyday. Now, are you going to do it at the same quantity? Probably not, but just allowing it to become a part of your life is so important, because what you do is going to benefit you, you know, and the legacy you leave is going to be the legacy that your kids learn from. Like, you know, like, these are not small things. Like, these are not small things, you know.
You said about the Sahaba that after Ramadan, they would spend like 6 months, you know, making dua that Allah accepted their deeds during Ramadan. And after that, the next 6 months, they would be making dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give them life to see the next Ramadan. So, you know, and one of the signs of your Ramadan being accepted is what you do after it. You're not going to be able to keep up at that pace, but are you different from how you was before Ramadan started? And you should be. And, you know, you should be trying to do, you know, more things that you wasn't doing before. You should have picked up at least one good habit, for example, that you didn't have before Ramadan, and continuously, you know, keep up with that, be consistent with it. So these things is important, and those are the signs that we can see that inshallah will tell us if our Ramadan has been accepted or not, you know. So we have to be hopeful with the thing that we're doing, because we don't want to put it down on ourselves and be depressed. Yeah, we need to be responsible for our actions. Call yourself to account before you're called to account, you know. So by the end of the month, you know, think about what you've done, but at the same time, think about what you should be looking towards to go forward. And in Islam, alhamdulillah, we get rewarded for even our intentions. You know, you might not, none of us we have that we're going to wake up tomorrow morning, but if we have the intention that when we do wake up, inshallah, that we will do X, Y, Z, you know, different things, inshallah, we will get rewarded for having those intentions.
I think it's also important to say, revert or not, becoming your best Muslim self is a lifelong journey. The only reason that I have a sense of urgency and trying to call people to better actions is only because we don't know how much time we have individually. If you are trying your best outside Ramadan, you've gained a couple of new habits, or maybe you're putting Ramadan energy into your everyday after that. You know, these are definitely comforts that we should take, and gratitude that we should have for, because remembrance is an absolute blessing. It's a provision. It's something that we should be constantly humbled by. Alhamdulillah for Islam. Alhamdulillah for Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it all from us. Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Well, it was an absolute honour to speak to you today, Summer. We will continue our conversations outside Ramadan, but I think we just wanted to sort of take advantage of the time ourselves, hence why we didn't do anything until now. It was really, we really had to force ourselves to do this, to be honest with you, because last few days you just want to focus on that, don't you? But inshallah, this video is beneficial, and that's it, really.
And yeah, I really appreciate it, and as a pleasure as always talking to you. Alhamdulillah.
Same. Alhamdulillah for sisterhood.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.